morning, everyone. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I appreciate you being willing to shift to a virtual meeting, and I'm very sorry not to be seeing you in person this morning. So first up on our agenda is Provost Buckwalter is joining us to greet the college and share some thoughts. So we will hear from him. Then we will switch over into the portion of the meeting from me. We'll be hearing from 4 schools, and then I'll come back on for a closing. So Dr. Buckwalter, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the College of Arts and Sciences.
Well, thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be able to speak with you for a few minutes this morning. I started the day bright and early, helping students move into their residence hall this morning. And I think what I particularly enjoy about doing that is it reminds me exactly why I got into the business that I got into and why I do what I do. And so I'd like to start by thanking all of you for everything that you did last year for our students to provide as much as possible a normal experience at Boise State University, and to thank you in advance for what you will do this year to make the experience tremendous for our students. It won't be normal, so to speak, as in maybe 2019 normal, but it will be normal-ish. And we're all going to have to be a little bit flexible and extend grace to all members of our community. And I'm completely confident that we can do this as an institution. We can do this in the College of Arts and Sciences. So I've met a couple of you, but I thought maybe I'd just do a little brief introduction of where I've been and how I got to Boise State. This is my 24th day on the job here at Boise State. And yes, it hasn't been that long, so I can still kind of count the days. At some point, I guess I'll stop keeping track. But and so I'm still learning a lot. I've been at a number of institutions. I started my career at the Medical College of Wisconsin. My first administrative positions were at the University of Texas at Arlington. And you may have heard me say this in the past, there are a lot of parallels between UT Arlington and Boise State in the sense that they're both relatively young institutions. They both started out as 2-year institutions and then switched to become 4-year institutions in the mid 60s. And so I'm seeing some similarities in terms of structure and culture between those two institutions. Most recently, I was at Kansas State University, where I was the Dean of the College of Health and Human Sciences. And so I know kind of what it was like to deal with COVID last year and all the adjustments that had to be made at a college level. When I think about the things that attracted me to Boise State, what jumps out to me is this really is an institution on the move. The enrollment growth, which was highlighted in Dr. Trump's State of the Union, our State of the University address yesterday, has just been phenomenal. Record funding, research funding, extramural funding happened last year in spite of the pandemic. And I know the College of Arts and Sciences was a big part of that success. And so I want to thank you for all your efforts on that front. The city, quite frankly, was a big draw to me. It's a beautiful environment. I know why people want to live, but we're going to have to figure out the housing situation, because I know that that's impeding our ability to recruit very talented people. We have faculty and staff that want to come to Boise State, but they just can't afford to do it. And so that's something that I know that's on the front of the president's mind. But if I really narrow it down to maybe 2 big factors that attracted me to Boise State, was really the culture of innovation that permeates the institution. It's a place where you can try new things, you can implement new ideas. You see that in all sorts of ways, from academic offerings to structures. I like the fact that the College of Arts and Sciences was willing to step up with Bronco Trek and really take that under its wing to help it be successful. I think the program that you have, where you can have 3 minors that turn into majors, is also a good example of that innovation that you see in the College of Arts and Sciences. I think the second thing that attracted me primarily to the institution was the commitment to student success. You see that in all sorts of ways, including in the College of Arts and Sciences. It truly is a student-centered institution that really resonates with me. I think it's really an exciting time to be at Boise State because the institution is rolling out a new strategic plan, Blueprint for Success, where we're really focused on being a premier student success-driven research university that's innovating for statewide and global impact. And while we have the framework of that with the goals, the 5 major goals that have been set out by the university, it's really now time to come up with the key strategies and the key outcomes. And the College of Arts and Sciences is going to be a big player in this. And this is going to not be the provost plan or the president plan. It really has to be everybody's plan. And I'm excited to get to work on that. I think when you look at the College of Arts and Sciences, there's a huge demand around the state of Idaho for your graduates. And they're critical to meeting the economic needs of the state. But what also has to be recognized is the College of Arts and Sciences is instrumental in meeting the demands of all the majors on campus that are also trying to meet the economic and workforce demands of the state of Idaho. So as I started this, I'm new to the institution. I look forward to learning more about the college and the university. I look forward to looking for ways that I can partner with the leadership and the faculty in the College of Arts and Sciences as we push these strategic plans forward, especially around things like student success, advancing research and scholarship, creative activities and discovery, and innovating and impacting not only our university community, but the community at large. So if you see me wandering across campus, I hope that you will take a couple of minutes to stop and introduce yourself. You can't really tell on this call, but I'm kind of tall. So I'm 6'7". So if you see a tall guy wandering around campus, it doesn't look like necessarily he knows where he's going. That's probably me. And so introduce yourself. I'm in the rec center in the evening. So if you work out there, feel free to introduce yourself there. I'm going to end this in the same way I started, telling you thank you. Thank you once again for everything you did last year and everything that you're going to do this year for the institution, for our students, and really for the people of Idaho.
So again, welcome back, everyone. Until last week, I thought I'd be greeting you in person. I'd been imagining so many happy reunions, and I'm genuinely disappointed that they're not happening today. We canceled the coffee order and the reservation for the Jordan Ballroom, and here we are, with the screen both facilitating and disrupting our experience of community once again. There were many points in my summer when it felt so gloriously like normal life was returning, and I hope you enjoyed some of those too. I managed a weekend road trip with a friend, several beautiful, chilly, smoke-free days in Oregon with my husband, daughter, and dog, and even a few in-person celebrations. I stopped wearing a mask, started to reacquaint myself with structured clothing in restaurants, and began re-entering normal society with increasing confidence and enthusiasm. I was starting to feel present, truly human, for the first time in a long time. But at the same time, I noticed a strange trend in my reading, viewing, and podcast listening. The human relationship to technology was ubiquitous, and the boundaries of the human seemed to be blurring. In my pleasure readings, such as Clara and the Sun, and No One is Talking About This, in the Netflix special Bo Burnham Inside, in my work reading with things like Robot Proof and Machine Platform Crowd, and everywhere in my podcast listening, I felt like I was perpetually encountering the precarity of human presence in a dystopian present or a post-human future. I noticed with some alarming frequency when I pasted text from another source into a Google document that the font name that appeared was Roboto,
As someone who was a teen in the 80s, that conjured up a certain pop song every time I saw it. I feared I'd expose myself to some nefarious algorithm affecting my consumption and absorption of culture and ideas, and I didn't want to think about where it might lure me next. And then I discovered an artist, an 80-year-old feminist artist who had been making extraordinary work for 6 decades. She's considered a pioneer in photography, film, video, computer-based art, and performance, but she's been marginalized by many mainstream art institutions until the last few years, both because of the experimental nature of her work. She said it was considered bad art for over 50 years because museums didn't even have the staff that could deal with the technology or install it, and because of her insistence in calling attention to sexism's impact on women's bodies and identities. Prescient is a label now applied to her work with some frequency, but she sees herself as being open to her own time. She told an interviewer in Art Forum, "If you're dealing with the present, people think that you're in the future because they don't know what's going on in their own time." When I came upon Lynn Hirschman Leeson's broad catalog of work, which includes an interactive laser disc, an overactive chatbot, a shadowy surveillance system, and even vials of synthetic DNA, I absolutely found something that was speaking to my present state of mind and emerging interests in the human technology interface. This image in particular struck me and has stayed with me. After so many hours spent on Zoom, I felt like my head has been replaced with a camera, that my body is struggling to hold up, and that I might topple right over. Here in Reach from 1986, the woman seems to be seeking connection while trying to keep her balance. The images in the lens and the viewfinder are often interpreted to be of the main subject, when her body is free from the technological intervention of the main image. As one critic has noted, missing body parts are reflected in the glare of the lens, raising questions of whether they belong to the viewer or the subject, and that this work participates in Leeson's larger strategy of engaging with questions of the body and identity in relation to new technologies. Instead of taking the position of a techno-optimist or a techno-pessimist, her critics say, she scrutinizes the boundaries between the human and the machine to find joints and fissures. My various forms of privilege have allowed me to weather the COVID storm remarkably well, and yet I feel myself reaching for something I can't quite grasp these days, particularly as we're remasking. Perhaps I haven't belonged fully to myself while trapped in front of the Zoom screen in endless mediated conversations. I strive for balance amidst feelings of profound disorientation, but the fissures run deep, despite or even because of my access to technologies that have kept me safe, employed, and at times pleasantly distracted. I'll pause such musings for a while so that we can cover several topics of immediate business. Then I'll move back into the space of trying to understand the changes we're experiencing in this strange present, how together we might reach forward towards a better future for our students and ourselves, and how we might brace each other in this topsy-turvy moment as we do. Traditionally, we welcome new full-time faculty at this meeting, but our need to utilize technology in new ways to form connections prompts me to try something new. Many of you have shared that this section of the August meeting tends to last longer than needed, and I would really like to recognize new staff as well as new faculty. So we'd like to try this. We'll invite our new full-time colleagues to post short videos introducing themselves on our college website. We'll provide some guidance on topics and links for them, and we'll let the rest of you know when they're up and ready to enjoy. If you have strong feelings, pro or con, once you've seen the new plan in action, please drop Jeff Oliver, a new member of the college team and our first ever communications and media specialist, a note to let him know what you think. While we're talking about changes in college staffing, something that's been on my mind and maybe on some of yours is when we will have permanent leadership in the college. The university is still in a period of leadership change overall. There are currently 2 interim vice presidents. Our own Nancy Glenn is leading research and economic development, while Ed Whipple has recently joined the university to provide interim leadership in student affairs. Meanwhile, there are 4 interim deans,
in the library, education, SPS, and arts and sciences. You may also be aware that Tammy Vakahasi has a prestigious American Council on Education fellowship, and so Scott Lowe will be serving as acting dean of the Graduate College this year. This is starting my 4th year as interim dean in arts and sciences, and it has just been a genuine honor and a privilege to serve you. I have so enjoyed learning more about what all of you do and about how the university works, and to be in a position to think with you about how we might move the college forward. I don't know what's ahead after this year, but I feel incredibly lucky to be here again this year.
I'd like to thank the Dean's Office team for all they do to support the great work in the college. Mackenzie Phillips, Marcy Harmer, Kenna Cox, Robert Allen, Dave Monroe, Chance Bohr, Melanie Bannister, Doug Bullock, CJ Northrup, Kathleen Keys, and Kelly Myers, along with our new team members, Melanie Jones, Brandon Fudge, and Jeff Oliver. This is a remarkable group, and I feel so lucky to work with them. Another one of the great parts of this job is working with the department chairs, and they are an essential part of the college leadership team. I'm glad to have the opportunity to thank the chairs who are continuing their service this year and to welcome our new department chairs. Our continuing chairs are John Zeiker in anthropology, Dan Scott in art design and visual studies, Kevin Ferris in biology, Owen McDougall in chemistry, Jim McNamara in geosciences, Margaret Kinzel in mathematics, Linda Klein in music, Stephen Crowley in philosophy, Charles Hanna in physics, Eric Landrum in psychology, Arthur Scarrett in sociology, Richard Clouch in theater, film, and creative writing, and Jason Herbeck in world languages. And now for our new chairs, Lisa Brady is leading the Department of History, Amanda Hicks is leading the Department of Communication, and Rick Moore is leading the Department of Media. You'll hear there that the former Department of Communication and Media is now 2 departments, and I'm excited to see the great work that will emerge out of these units, and I'm truly appreciative of the work that faculty and staff have done in creating the new structures. As many of you know, the Department of English is currently undergoing a restructuring effort, and I anticipate that we'll be welcoming chairs of new units at next year's fall address. Together, the department members and college leadership are reviewing the proposals faculty submitted for new units. No decisions have been made yet, but when they have, I'll be happy to share them with you. I'm also grateful to Kathleen Keys, who is providing leadership in the department during the restructuring process. Last year, one of the efforts in which chairs, and so many of you invested significant amounts of time, was program prioritization. This is a challenging effort during normal academic years, and last year was anything but. You have my sincere gratitude for this effort and the good spirit in which you completed the work asked of you last year. And as you know, many of our instructional programs completed action plans at the end of May. I'm in the process of finalizing those with department chairs, and Kenna Cox will be helping us organize this year's work. We'll need to report on the outcomes of the actions you proposed, and we're going to build a system to support your progress. In June, the Provost's office submitted the final report to the State Board, and it will soon be available on their website. I also wanted to provide you with some budget information. We've talked a lot about Bronco budget over the last 3 years, so pausing to take stock of the bigger picture of this milestone seemed well worth doing. In broad strokes, the 3-year history of Bronco budget is marked by 2 small fluctuations in years 1 and 2, where we saw swings of plus or minus $300,000 to $400,000, followed by COVID losses of $1.4 million in the 3rd year. While all this was happening, there were budget changes driven by things like adding courses from UF, FC, and extended studies. These can be thought of as either Bronco budget funds or subvention, and across the university, there remains variation in how we discuss the budget system. The combined effect of all this is that COAS has gained between $1 million and $1.5 million in new funding. The number is a bit soft because some contributions are hard to categorize in the midst of fluctuations, which are inevitable in any budget, but particularly one that now approaches $49 million. Of this new funding, over $1 million has gone to departments as new instructional costs. We asked departments to add sections or take short-term and calculated risks with one-time money. If these moves attracted students in the pilot year, We moved permanent funding to stabilize the changes in subsequent years. And with these expansions, we're in essence breaking even. During this time, departments have not been made responsible for Bronco budget losses, nor have departments experienced much pass-through of Bronco budget gains other than the roughly $1 million for new instruction. Going forward, this will have to change. Our Bronco budget analysis will start to play a larger role in decision-making, particularly in decisions about hiring. The college needs to begin moving resources into growth areas and making strategic investments. This probably has to be balanced by looking more closely at places where Bronco budget losses are recurring. We have a process for figuring out how each department's contribution to the total Bronco budget picture, including the departmental share of the various subventions. At the department level, we can see that there are places where Bronco budget numbers are healthy, and if not growing, at least stable. There are places where there are some questions, but that aren't too worrisome, particularly in light of the COVID context. And there are some places where there's some trouble over a longer period than the 3 years of Bronco budget. When that's the case, Doug Bullock and I will meet with department leadership to develop mitigation strategies. As part of the hiring reflection process, which we have updated by shortening and by placing a clearer emphasis on innovation, we'll be discussing this in more detail with individual departments. We will work collaboratively with chairs to clarify the department mission, stabilize its deliverables, and align resources accordingly. Bronco budget isn't the only financial resource in the college, and you can expect to see the college's fundraising efforts accelerating quickly this year. Along with the rest of the university, we're in the process of preparing for a major capital campaign. We don't have a launch date yet, but we'll be laying the groundwork throughout the next year. We have a wonderful team in Melanie Bannister and Brandon Fudge. They're in the process of visiting with department chairs to make sure we are fully informed about current needs and future aspirations and how those can be integrated into college-level priorities. For the first time, deans have been assigned fundraising goals for the year. The college's total productivity in fundraising last year was around $2 million. Next year, the goal for COAS is $5.7 million, which is higher than any other college, and I'm proud to report that less than 2 months into the fiscal year, we're already at 44% of the goal, with $2.5 million raised. Given our strong start, I'm hoping that we exceed the goal by year's end. Deans also have research advancement goals for the first time. Each dean of an academic college has been tasked with bringing in a 5% increase in extramural funding in the year ahead. Based on the numbers available at evaluation time, the requirement was set for arts and sciences at around $800,000. I wasn't especially anxious when I saw the goal because I was well aware that our awards had been on a steady upward trajectory for many years. And then when I saw our final numbers for FY21, I was both delighted and sure that some action was required. In FY20, our awards totaled $16.8 million. In FY21, they totaled $27.7. That's a 60% increase during a pandemic. So first, a huge congratulations to all of you who have contributed to this success. And this success is broadly held. PIs on these awards come from 12 of last year's 16 departments. But I also see some urgent needs in this number. First, it is well past time for arts and sciences to evaluate and make a case for building out its research support infrastructure. Our awards and expenditures have increased rapidly, and I don't think our support services are anywhere near keeping pace with this growth. We need to start by mapping the assets we have. Then we need to evaluate our strengths and our gaps. We need to see if there are places where resources and best practices can be shared, and we need to identify the places where new or expanded services are needed to sustain our growth. It's also important to me, and I think to the university, that we recognize the variety of activities that contribute to a vibrant research community. As we think about expanding our college's research enterprise and the resources needed to support that work, we will of course pay careful attention to extramural funding. But we also need to be thinking about the breadth and depth of the work in our college so that we can be supporting and advancing our whole academic community and its scholarly and creative work. These aspects of our budget point us directly at the strategic plan. Quite a lot has happened since our January meeting. Dr. Tromp approved the new university strategic plan titled Blueprint for Success in February, and the State Board of Education gave its approval in June. This summer, each university division was able to submit funding proposals for activities that could jumpstart progress on the plan's goals, and 6 items were funded, including one from Arts and Sciences Bronco Gap Year, which accommodates students seeking a low-cost, flexible, mentor-led enrollment option. The campus will have another budget request process for strategic planning efforts in the coming academic year. Details for this process will be available later this fall, and as soon as they are, I will share them with you and your department chairs. Gap Year is just one of the ways that Arts and Sciences is supporting the Blueprint for Success. Another effort supporting the pillar, Improve Educational Access and Student Success, is something we've been calling Bronco First Year. Bronco First Year will serve as a hub to deliver an outstanding first-year experience, aiding in the closure of equity gaps by supporting recruitment, retention, and progression of students in all majors. We think it will create a synergistic integration of first-year academic experiences common across majors. It can host Bronco interest groups to provide community and programming in parallel with living learning communities. It can integrate career planning and readiness from the start of the student journey, and it can energize and connect the faculty and staff that support first-year learners. In partnership with the Provost's Office, we are in the very early stages of developing this concept, and we'll be reaching out to those of you who teach and serve early career students for opportunities to participate in the design process later this semester. In support of the Foster Thriving Community pillar, I'm pleased to announce a new small grant program, COAS Community Flourishing Grants. By September 1, the college will release a call for proposals. Units, affinity groups, programs, and individuals can propose ideas to help facilitate community flourishing. This might involve the purchase of a book for a group of faculty and staff interested in participating in a reading circle. It might include an honorarium for a speaker of interest to faculty and staff across a group of departments. It might entail hosting an event in support of graduate students. Basically, it's just an opportunity to bring people together in person or virtually as conditions allow in order to build a sense of belonging and to share or explore ideas that can strengthen and elevate the communities within our college. In support of the Innovation for Institutional Impact and Trailblaze programs and partnerships, we'll be launching the Luminary Impact Group, which builds on the excellent work of the World Museum Interdisciplinary Collaborative Team. The Stein Luminary is the interactive and immersive digital gallery inside the Center for Visual Art that was previously known as the World Museum. Visitors can use its nearly 800 square feet of custom-built, large-scale screens to explore art collections from around the world, experience original artist installations, interact in immersive environments, and witness dynamic collaborations amongst the arts and sciences of Boise State. The Luminary's mission is for visitors and contributors to explore creative arts, cultural sites, and scientific phenomena, to foster interdisciplinary collaboration and research-based innovation, and to generate meaningful conversations about art and technology in our lives. Under the leadership of Interim Director Lisa Hunt, faculty, staff, and students involved in the Stein Luminary have already formed a faculty learning community, planned interactive curricula for primary and secondary learners, created a platform for immersive exhibitions, and established its first local collaboration with the Boise Philharmonic Youth Orchestra. Dr. Tromp has asked that we continue to stretch our imaginations about how the Luminary can have an incredible impact on our campus and in the community. So please stay tuned for ways that you might contribute as we deploy the Luminary's cutting-edge technology to trailblaze new ways for people to view, experience, and interact with the arts and sciences at Boise State. Another way you can get involved with the college's support of Blueprint for Success is through a series of new working groups. We're trying something new this year with the Chairs Council. Instead of meeting most weeks as a full group, we're going to spend a couple weeks a month in working groups focused on 4 topics: student success and retention, graduate education, research and creative activity, and innovation, operations, and budget. In addition to having 4 to 5 chairs serve on each working group, I'd like to include faculty in each group too. On September 1, we'll also be releasing an application process to join these groups. The groups are aligned with several of the pillars of the strategic plan, and I hope that they will begin to lay the groundwork of a college-level strategic planning process in academic year 22-23. And finally, our emerging schools speak in various ways to all 5 pillars. They allow us to pursue innovation, not for its own sake, but to support and propel our students. They help us to advance research and creative activity in ways that make Boise State a transformative research university, while at the same time being truly student-centered. They showcase our engagement across Idaho and far beyond. They make new spaces for us to engage in the practices rooted in the theory that we study and shape to create thriving communities. And within and across them, we'll continue our habit of trailblazing new connections. As our colleagues share their updates later in the meeting, I think you'll hear a variety of connections clearly, and there remain many ways for you to get involved with the structure's continued development. There is truly so much happening in the university and in the college right now. In anticipation of what I think should be an exciting, but also a very labor-intensive year ahead, I took a real vacation. For 10 days in July, I was out of the office and I demonstrated uncharacteristic restraint in staying off email. But I didn't unplug from inside higher education and the Chronicle. Even at the Oregon coast, I still like to read these sites with my morning coffee. And despite the sounds of the ocean nearby, I got excited by Higher Education in a World of Singles by Stephen Tepper, Dean of the Hirschberger College of Design and the Arts at Arizona State. In his piece for Inside Higher Ed, Tepper compared the situation higher education finds itself in to what the music industry was facing in the late 90s when Napster upended their business model. And I was intrigued. If technology could so powerfully transform people's relationship to music, might it, or something else, be able to have an equally seismic impact on higher education? Are there ways that we can direct the force of this change, or must we simply let it wash over us? As a quick refresher, Napster was a music-sharing software created by 19-year-old hacker Sean Fanning. It was essentially a cataloging system that searched your hard drive, listed all the MP3 music files contained in it, and allowed those to be shared with and played by anyone else using the software. It required a bit of effort, but once people got used to it, they discovered that they had access to all the world's music, unbundled from albums and for free. At Napster's peak, 57 million people were sharing and listening to music through the software. The digital circulation and consumption of music, first through similar software and eventually through streaming platforms, ultimately transformed the industry in several ways. Revenues tumbled in the immediate wake of Napster and the first generation of its kin. But now, some 20 years later, and with streaming services firmly entrenched, Tepper describes the industry like this. While total music revenue from all sources is likely greater now than pre-Napster levels, he writes, and experts predict revenues will double in the next decade, the players are different, the models are different, platforms are more important than labels. Artists now build careers on their own as independent entrepreneurs, surrounded by a suite of legal, marketing, and business services that help them manage their own enterprises. And live music has exploded. Concert attendance before the pandemic was at record highs. Music festivals attract millions of people yearly. The move to digital has created a consequent imperative for powerful face-to-face engagement. Tepper then goes on to compare higher education to the music industry. And once he sets the comparison up, it's easy to remix his list with some additional questions specific to our context. In concert with Tepper, I think these are the questions we need to ask. Which players or universities are going to be able to survive our industry upheaval? Will only higher education's version of the major labels, the Ivy League and elite state research universities, thrive in the new educational economy? What strategies can scrappy outsiders like Boise State employ? Will platforms like Coursera, which we've been using for Bronco Gap Year, that curate content without maintaining campuses or establishing long-term relationships with faculty who generate content, will those replace traditional educational products and assets? What kind of relationships should we cultivate or resist with such providers? How can faculty manage their intellectual property differently than generations past? How can creative and entrepreneurial faculty, the blue turf thinkers of arts and sciences, who develop exciting and meaningful new content, thrive in this evolving environment? Is the 120 credit degree likely to follow the same path as the album? How do our stackable credentials compare to singles? And how do we ensure that students thrive if the format changes across a large scale? In the face of the mediated and digital, how can we sustain a live experience that is incredibly meaningful for the students we serve? Instead of seeing this as an inefficiency that our state assessments might encourage us to resist, our novel live experience is actually the way that we improve our productivity of successful graduates. Ultimately, has higher education met its Napster? And if it hasn't, when will it arrive? Clearly, we are still in the midst of a significant disruption, and I think it will be a while before we can truly ascertain how permanent the shift will be. But the longer it lasts, the more clearly it lays bare issues that were demanding our attention before the pandemic, and the more urgent these questions become. We've now been discussing these topics in meetings for the past 3 years, just without the benefit of the Napster analogy. Attempts to wait out forces of change, hoping they will recede, seem increasingly foolhardy. We need to follow Lynn Hirschman-Leeson's invitation to see our present. The future of higher education is now, and in it we find intertwined issues regarding technology, issues of access and privilege, the need to provide rapid return on investment to graduates, an evolving student demographic as the population changes, as it's both diversifying and it may be heading for a significant contraction in traditional age students due to lower birth rates, while the population of older learners may increase as they recognize the need to up or reskill in a changing economy. While we may not be facing a single force of change like the music industry, it looks to me like several may be converging rapidly, and we need a strategic response. Many of you have been engaged in the school's conversations, and I continue to think they are essential to how we orient ourselves to the future. The schools are nimble structures that help us solve the problems of how we provide the education students need and the experiences they seek in a rapidly changing environment, while also allowing us to sustain the values that brought us to higher education and that keep us here working to advance it. While the schools are engaged with very different topics, across their range of interests and expertise, they mark the intersection of what Joseph Aoun terms robot-proof and what Ronald Barnett calls the Ecological University. Aoun, the president of Northeastern University, former dean of the College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences at the University of Southern California, and a linguist by training, sets a particular goal for higher education in his 2017 book, Robot Proof: Higher Education in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. This was a reread for me this summer, and I thank Sean Benner for including it on his list for the 2019 Arts and Sciences Summer Reading Group. I have to say it landed on me more strongly and more positively this summer than it did 2 years ago. Given the impact technology has had on the world around us these last 18 months, an emphasis I'd hoped to dismiss 2 years ago seems impossible to ignore now. Aoun says we need a new model of learning that enables learners to understand the highly technological world around them and that simultaneously allows them to transcend it by nurturing the mental and intellectual qualities that are unique to humans. In order to meet this goal, he suggests 3 literacies: data, technological and human, and 4 capacities: systems thinking, entrepreneurship, critical thinking, and cultural agility. I feel confident that these interdisciplinary, future-facing literacies and capabilities are within the domain of what we are doing in our long-established programs or what we can be doing as the schools develop in arts and sciences. Owen argues that these literacies and capacities are capable of generating the essential robot-proof qualities of creativity and mental flexibility. And across the breadth of our programming in and beyond the schools, these qualities are indeed the hallmark of an arts and sciences education. But if you feel uneasy about Owen's provocations, I think the primary tools he recommends for freeing our students' potential will temper that response. He says these tools, explicit learning across disciplines, project-based learning, and real-world connections, are imperative in teaching the robot-proof model of higher education. These tools are also imperative to the evolving schools as we've been imagining them, and they have the potential to augment the already great things that we're offering our students. Putting these ideas into conversations with some of those that Roland Barnett, Emeritus Professor of Higher Education at the University of London, offers in his book, Imagining the University, amplifies them. Of the several types of universities he catalogs, the one that is especially intriguing to me is the one he calls the Ecological University. And I think we might extrapolate from that what it would be like to inhabit an ecological college. Barnett describes the Ecological University as having these features. It understands its situation and its unfolding within multiple ecologies. It has an interest not merely in sustainability, but well-being. It has a care or concern for the world. It is engaged in the world. It puts its resources into play such that they serve the world. Recognition of the complexities of our context, reaching beyond sustainability to well-being, and a care-based, service-oriented engagement with the world around us is what arts and sciences, its existing departments and programs, and its new schools is uniquely positioned to provide. These values, in concert with future-facing literacies, competencies, and tools, helps us transcend the challenges of the technological present. I'm excited to share the screen now with the leaders of 4 school efforts. You'll hear first from Denise Winget in the School of Biomolecular Sciences, second from Jody Mead and Tim Anderson in the School of Computing, third from Rebecca Sam-Castellano and Kelly Rispe on the School of Human Systems and Global Engagement, and finally from Kevin Ferris, Lejo Flores, and Emily Wakehild on the School of the Environment.
Hello, my name is Jody Mead, and I'm a professor in the math department and co-director for the PhD in computing. As Leslie mentioned, I'm co-leading an effort to gather ideas for a school of computing with Tim Anderson in computer science. Thank you, Leslie, for giving us this opportunity to talk about our efforts and for your inspiring words this morning, as you always do during these meetings. I think you've given the motivation for why all of us are putting in these efforts to identify what we need to create these schools. And hopefully I won't need to motivate that because you've done that for us. Next, could you start the slides, please? Thank you. So Tim and I began this effort by looking at other schools and colleges of computing. We saw that there were essentially 3 pillars, and after talking with folks across campus, across departments, across colleges, we've identified these 3 pillars as computing in society, fundamental computing, and computing in the disciplines. I've listed here examples of which departments would participate in each pillar. And as you can see, some departments would most likely be in different pillars, for example, anthropology. The ethical, human, and social implications of computing are critical components of modern computing education and research. We feel that COAS has a unique role to play in this. We're fortunate that Steve Crowley from philosophy has stepped up to help us lead this effort. And I encourage you to contact him if you would like more information about that aspect, as my and Tim's expertise lies more in the fundamental computing and computing in the disciplines aspects. So again, I think Leslie did a really good job of motivating the schools, and I think in particular also the School of Computing. But I should mention that computational methods are occurring across a large number of departments on our campuses. And ultimately, what we want to do is create a welcoming and inclusive environment to support the education and the research in these areas. Next slide, please. We've been gathering initial ideas this summer in earnest and decided to put our efforts in this Google site. I welcome everyone to visit it. And here I've taken a snapshot of the front page where we have a working vision and mission statement. These are very generic, and we hope the efforts that are going on right now will better define what a vision and mission statement would be. Effectively, our efforts are to integrate computing curriculum at both the undergraduate and graduate levels across colleges and programs. We also want to foster a collaborative research environment where we are building communities. Ultimately, we want to support the university in producing graduates with critical thinking skills that bridge computing, humanities, and social science. And as I mentioned before, Leslie has done an amazing job at explaining why those are important. Thank you, Leslie. Okay, the next slide, please. What we've done is take a lot of what MIT did a couple of years ago when they created a College of Computing. We're fortunate that they described their process well through documents that are freely available on their website. I welcome anyone to look that up if you're interested in this process. Essentially, they had working groups and they asked them to produce final reports in these areas. We did something similar. Next slide, please. So our process, there's a lot on this slide and it's all available on that Google site that I mentioned. But essentially, we identified these 6 working groups. The members of the working groups, it's voluntary, and we in no way meant to exclude anyone. We want to be as inclusive as possible. If you are interested in any of them in particular, if you go to this Google site, we post the typically Zoom meeting links and materials that each group is creating, and you're welcome to contribute in any way that you want. So please join the Google group if you're interested, and you can get emails about what's going on. And in particular, on September 3rd, we've asked the groups to come together in a big meeting, and you're welcome to join that as well. So please, again, don't hesitate to contact me, Tim Anderson, or Steve Crowley if you'd like to know more about this, and I hope you visit a site. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Denise Wingett, and I've been asked to spend a few minutes providing an update on the new School of Biomolecular Sciences. The idea for this new school was a natural offshoot from the successes of the existing Biomolecular Sciences graduate programs, which is interdisciplinary and involving faculty from biological sciences, chemistry and biochemistry, and physics. For the past year and a half, faculty have been getting together to work on the vision of this new school, to define its goals, and to figure out ways to make this school even more interdisciplinary by providing real opportunities for faculty outside of these initial 3 departments. We are also excited by the new things the school will allow us to do that are not presently possible. A draft of the mission statement is shown here. We welcome returning and new participants to this semester's discussions, which will happen largely on Wednesdays at 3 to 4. Please email me to be added to the group's email list. Some of the past work that the faculty has done has been to identify the major goals and the core values of the new school. It's also defined a new interdisciplinary undergraduate degree in biomolecular sciences. We have some major items to finish this semester. One of the big items to be tackled is to define and decide on the administrative structure of the new school. We've also identified some new resources that are needed. And along with this, we need to prioritize the goals of the schools and to develop a phase-in plan that aligns with these goals. Ultimately, we will be submitting the State Board of Education proposal this year. And in conclusion, I'm not going to read through this slide because it was presented last time, but it just highlights some of the select goals of this new school. So again, we welcome anyone who has an interest. Drop us an email and I'll get you in touch with the group. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Kevin Ferris.
Hey everybody, I'm Lejo Flores.
And I'm Emily Wakefield.
And we're so excited to give you an update today about where we're at with the School of the Environment. It's been an excellent year of designing the school, and I hope you're really excited about the progress that we've made. Next slide. One of the defining challenges our community has articulated over the past year as we've designed the School of the Environment is that our new students who bring enthusiasm, passion, and curiosity for contributing to a healthy environmental future is that they confront a university with organizational and curricular structures that were developed in another era and may not reflect the variety of ways they can contribute. And although a variety of outcomes are available to them across diverse majors and programs, the paths to these outcomes are often tangled and confusing. Next slide. We imagine the School of the Environment as addressing this challenge in two important ways. First, we see the school as a front door, ready to meet these students where they are, understand their motivations and aspirations, and help them find and start navigating their own path. At the same time, the school will help create a supportive community that helps students navigate their paths by finding and promoting commonality across curricular structures, particularly in the early phases of student development, linking across existing areas of strength through deep integration of teaching and scholarship, and filling in gaps we find along the way.
Institutions of higher education are facing unique challenges. Our technological capacity and organizational flexibility are advancing much more rapidly than our institutional and programmatic structures. At the same time, the pace of environmental change from drought and wildfire to habitat depletion and land conversion exceeds the translation of academic knowledge into practical policy guidance, behavioral change, or the implementation of best practices on the ground. Currently, institutions of higher learning are built on hierarchical and individualized models, and these structures have become outdated. They need to adapt to the crises that we face. For our institutions of higher education to remain strong, relevant, and efficient drivers of our society and economy, we have to explore novel institutional structures, especially those that embrace collaborative and networked knowledge production. Structures that enable innovation in student training and education, support transdisciplinary scholarly activity, and facilitate stakeholder engagement and public partnership, support and celebrate the intrinsic value of education as a public good. The proposed School of the Environment will nurture and grow an integrated community dedicated to advancing education, research, and leadership across disciplines. It will provide opportunities for meaningful connection and integration across academic and administrative structures to leverage the best expertise available, regardless of disciplinary boundaries. The school will help mend the gaps between programs and projects that have let environmental research and education develop in silos without integration. By organizing and facilitating opportunities for inter, multi, and cross-disciplinary scholarship, on topics of an environmental nature, including but not limited to forests and waters and farmlands, habitat loss, biodiversity depletion, energy production, species restoration, climate sustainability, conservation, and more. We will develop a novel curriculum that models integrative learning and provides students with advising and mentoring to help them identify educational trajectories and experiences that align with their skills, capabilities, and career goals. Furthermore, the School of the Environment will draw attention to existing environmental expertise and facilitate, promote, and augment this work.
The vision of the School of the Environment is to develop and enhance inclusive interdisciplinarity and cultivate collaborative solutions to environmental problems. And to accomplish and support this vision, we're proposing a school that employs a matrix organizational structure. These structures allow for reciprocal exchange of faculty and staff between units, contributions by faculty in ways that align with existing workload expectations, and strong alignment between the leadership structure of the organization, responsibility and passion for integrating different components of the school's mission, and authority over resources that can be strategically invested to achieve that mission. Creating and maintaining a matrix prevents units from needing to continually reorganize or vie for specific resources, and instead it networks related programs to enhance shared curriculum, enhance collaborative scholarship and activities through natural and thoughtful alliances, thereby maximizing outcomes and efficiency, and enabling us to develop an environmental intellectual hub on campus. These matrix structures are exceptionally common outside of academic institutions because they allow for flexibility in organizations that pursue both task and project-based work, as academic institutions do. They substitute hierarchical command and control structures that have defined chains of command with more focused organizational structures in which individuals may be contributing to multiple different projects or task workflows over time. Can I cover the next slide, please? This figure illustrates the design of the School of the Environment's matrix organization as a series of axes and interaction nodes. The axes of the School of the Environment are really built on the idea of different aspects of support that the school would provide, and those would be captured under these different components or umbrellas that are focused on programmatic aspects of the school, the scholarship of the faculty and students engaged in the school, as well as developing leadership skills in students and faculty, and growing those skills and enabling them to lead to implementation of projects that are related to environmental solutions, both inside the institution and outside in the real world. The nodes that are illustrated on this figure by the intersecting gray lines are meant to be illustrative of the interaction amongst these axes to accomplish different aspects of the School of the Environment mission. So for example, one of the nodes of the matrix could focus on and specifically support the integration of collaborative faculty scholarship with experiential learning and programmatic requirements via vertically integrated projects. So importantly, each of these axes don't exist independently. Rather, they're meant to interact with one another in important ways and enable the strategic goals of the school. What we'll be doing, next slide, please. This fall, we'll be inviting you to join us in a couple of different activities, and those will include a couple of community forums, one that will be focused on a more detailed description of the matrix organizational structure as we've sort of drafted it thus far, getting your input on how it would work, as well as describing some of the ideas that we've had that have built on the feedback you've given us thus far. A second forum will focus on concepts that are beyond traditional metrics and asking the question of how do we measure the success of the School of the Environment. The time and date for these are to be determined, and we'll be reaching out to you soon with some calendar invites for those opportunities. Next slide, please. Lastly, we'll also be reaching out to a number of you to work on building a series of teams around focused around constructing new environmental degree programs. And for example, there has been interest in a bachelor's degree in environmental science and a master's degree in environmental management. Those will be places that we start with this type of degree construction.
Thank you for the opportunity this morning to share with you the progress that we've all made as a community in developing our School of the Environment. We hope to see you at the 2 upcoming forums, and we hope that you continue to build with us over the course of this semester. Have a great start of the fall semester, and go Broncos.
Greetings, colleagues. My name is Kelly Adispe, and I'm in the Department of World Languages.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Rebecca Sam Castellano in the Sociology Department. We're excited to share with you today an update regarding the School of Human Systems and Global Engagement.
Many of us appreciate and enjoy this beautiful trail system out our back door. And when we look at this map of the ridged rivers, we see an intricate, interconnected system. And there are subcultures that use this system differently. We have hikers, bikers, runners, and even motorists. And of course, your cute furry friends. And this shared use requires these different users to work together to take care of and support new ways for using this trail system. And a clear example of this is in their recent pilot program. And we know many of you have already carefully scrutinized the results of that survey, in fact.
In our work over the last year, we've discussed a silo problem within our college, and in particular with the humanities and social sciences. We acknowledge that some faculty for years have taken risks and devoted a lot of time to form interdepartmental partnerships that forge innovative practices in teaching and scholarship and community outreach. But where this occurs, it's often an individual burden to bear that is difficult to sustainably incentivize or to reward under the current structure. Some faculty are left out because they don't know how to get there. They can't see the path connecting. They can't see the path towards that. And the process sometimes takes too long. In order to facilitate more of this work, we need an adaptive system that can leverage our collective experience and ingenuity. The School of Human Systems and Global Engagement will be a home where integrative collaboration is expected and where the process for this work is visible, supported, and rewarded. As a result, the school will allow us to be structurally responsive to changing student and community needs, and we also hope it will enliven opportunities for faculty to try new ideas.
Yeah, and truth be told, we wrestled for over a year on what exactly to name this school, and we know no name is ever perfect. But it did matter to us that human systems be interlinked with global engagement because we acknowledge no human system is independent of the global world. And communicating that linkage to our students, our university, and our broader community matters. We define human systems broadly to include any system which is developed by humans, including political, cultural, social systems, and more. And of course, human systems are interconnected with one another, as well as with the natural world, and impact and are impacted by a global world that is always evolving. So as we look to our university's strategic plan, for example, we know that a thriving community is reflective of and impacted by our global community. And our work can span scales from the local to the global. So the aim of the School of Human Systems and Global Engagement is to build an interconnected academic home that is visible to all, like this map for trail users. This school will serve as a hub that gathers and mobilizes our expertise and training on human systems in a global world.
The humanities and social science design team met frequently throughout the 2020 and 2021 school year to collectively develop a vision for a new school focused on the humanities and social sciences. And throughout that time together in the fall, we curated an extensive literature review, researched and discussed a wide range of transferable models and approaches, and we brainstormed core values. Following a retreat in January, throughout the spring, we facilitated university-wide gatherings on experiential learning and held focused meetings with units across campus, including with admissions, economic development, graduate programming, undergraduate research, venture college, School of the Environment, and advancement in university foundations. And this work was a collaborative effort, and thanks is owed to all the folks who worked hard throughout last year on these efforts. You can see all of them represented here.
So this summer, Rebecca and I worked closely with Amanda Ashley and Interim Dean Durham to further propel this important work forward. And one of our aims is to make this work transparent and very accessible to help galvanize your participation and engagement. So this Google Drive is linked on our college website and it's organized as such. And there's also a 4-minute video on the college website and actually here also in the drive itself. And the video can orient you to understand how the folder has been organized so that you can locate where to leave feedback, where to provide input and provide ideas. For example, the first 3 subfolders here have links to short surveys and they're organized by themes. We also have a Google slide that's editable to create some ideas pertaining to curricula. The beige looking document titled How to Use This Folder is an alternative to that video and gives you a quick overview for the folder's contents. And we have a lot planned for this fall and we want you to be there. This chart gives you a sense for the timeline. And first up are 3 town halls and they're centered on whole student, whole faculty, and whole community. And faculty and staff across the university are invited to attend these town halls. For each town hall, we'll have 20 minutes of Q&A with invited panelists, followed by a breakout session discussion. And all town halls are going to be recorded for asynchronous access for those who cannot attend. And we've intentionally chosen days and times that are varied to try to accommodate as many of you as possible. We're going to have a 4th meeting in November called the Roundup because we want to be intentional about reporting back to you what we've learned from those town halls, as well as to get your continued feedback on progress at that point. And as you can see, we'll be hard at work prototyping and drafting a proposal with a deadline for internal circulation of a proposal by the end of the fall semester. And for immediate planning purposes, we want to invite you to the first town hall centered on whole student on September 15th at noon. It's really important to us that staff, in addition to faculty, attend these town halls, and especially since this first one is we discuss a holistic approach to supporting our students.
We really want to thank you all for your time this morning.
Yeah, we hope you have a great semester. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
As I bring the meeting to a close, I'd like to show you a quick video clip that I hope will build the bridge to an image that will complement Lynn Hirschman-Leeson's reach. If you download the Google app on your phone and search for Simone Biles in 3D and allow the app to access your phone's camera, with just a couple more clicks, you can bring this amazing athlete into your space and have her perform her triple-double. Or if Naomi Osaka or Megan Rapinoe are of greater interest to you, you can summon them instead. Now that Lynn Hirschman-Leeson's work has encouraged me to think about the interplay of technology in women's bodies, I can't help but observe that the first athletes that have been transported into this augmented reality environment are women. Of course, they've been paid handsomely for the use of their likenesses, but I do wonder why it is the female athletic body that Google found so well suited to obeying the commands of the iPhone or Android user. All that aside, there's a part of me that finds this incredibly cool. And yet, AR Simone Biles' perfect movement doesn't capture what I find inspirational about her and why she stayed on my mind after the close of the Olympics. There's something ineffable that transcends this new technology. At their start, I didn't really think the games would particularly hold my interest. It still felt like a more normal social life might be possible, and watching a screen wasn't something that I wanted more of. Ultimately, it wasn't the games themselves that moved me, but the decision of this remarkable athlete that AR could never have anticipated. The consequences of her decision and public reaction to it that have continued to fascinate me now, several weeks after the conclusion of the competition. As I think about a message I'd like to leave with the college as we enter a semester that may be even more challenging than those we faced last year, I'm thinking not just about Lynn Hirschman-Leeson, but also about Simone Biles. Simone Biles went into the competition with incredible expectations resting on her strong shoulders. She's a survivor of the abuse suffered by hundreds of gymnasts at the hands of Larry Nassar, and making sure this wasn't forgotten was something she spoke of frequently before the games. Her presence in them was a statement of survival. She has also widely been declared the greatest athlete ever to compete in her sport and one of the greatest athletes, period, by media outlets around the world. So it was no wonder that Google had chosen her to entice people to use their technology. At 24 years old, she was a seasoned veteran in a sport that had prioritized the very young, but the only competition she was expected to face would be coming from herself. This proved to be far more true than commentators realized pre-games. During her qualifying vault, Biles had to change the skill she would execute midair. Instead of doing the difficult Aminar vault with 2.5 twists, she did 1.5 twists, flung her arms out wide to slow her rotation, and stumbled on her landing that was low to the ground. Those familiar with Biles' consistently near-perfect technical capabilities were stunned. At a press conference after the event, Biles introduced a new term to many viewers, the twisties. During the vault, Biles suffered a traumatizing case of them, where she lost sense of her body in space, unable to distinguish between up and down. It was as if, much like the subject of Reach, the parts of herself were no longer hers. In order to take care of her mental health and the potential devastating consequences for her physical health, Biles would withdraw from the team competition and later from the individual competitions in the vault, floor exercise, and uneven parallel bars. Reaction to Biles' choice was swift, and not surprisingly in today's cultural environment, divided. The majority of respondents, or at least on the sites that I rely on for news, hailed the importance of Biles' decision. The prioritization of mental health, particularly given the widespread trauma of the last year and a half, and the destigmatization of those who struggle with it, was far more important than a flawless routine on any gymnastic apparatus. But this story and its inspiration isn't just about Biles. It's about her teammates. While opinions were flying around social and conventional media regarding her choices, she stepped out in public to cheer on her teammates, a group of incredible athletes who would earn a silver medal in the team competition. Her opportunity to cheer continued as Suni Lee won gold in the all-around competition and bronze on the unevens. Jade Carey won the floor exercise, and Michaela Skinner took silver on the vault. When Biles couldn't compete, her team stepped up and carried on. If you've listened to any of my college remarks in past semesters, you know I love a metaphor. I've drawn inspiration from Tina Fey, Lucille Ball, I.M. Pei, the Carters, and Dolly Parton. This time, I offer you Simone Biles and her team. The college has challenges ahead that will test our strength, our agility, and our resilience. Significant uncertainties remain for us as the battle against COVID rages on, as higher education is changing around us, and as we struggle to help our state's leadership and some members of the public understand that we teach our students how to think, not what to think. A particular aspect of this challenge that has been very much on my mind is the need to balance care for our community with the need to move the college forward in terms of the opportunities it offers students, the application and growth of our research enterprise, and the ways that we serve Idaho and the world. Some of our colleagues come to this new semester energized, ready to take on this vital work in big and exciting ways. But some of our colleagues are feeling depleted in ways they never have before. It can indeed be difficult to know up from down at the end of 18 long months, and when the hope for a conclusion that seemed finally to be within reach seems to be receding from our grasp. And so I'm asking you to emulate one of Biles' moves, the kind that can't be captured by Google's AR. Set your priorities to include self-care. If you find you need to step back on something, ask your community if there are ways they can support you. Our obligations are, of course, much different than a gymnast. We have a responsibility to serve our students and to sustain and advance the broad work of our college. But our community is also much bigger than a gymnastics team. When there are others who reach out to help, let them. Letting them step up doesn't diminish you or close you out of future opportunities. Give them the space to do and to lead, and know that when you're ready to step back in, With full force, there will be plenty of room for you to do just that. Biles shows us that too. While the world was busy speculating about her choices, she was in a gym at a university in a quiet suburb of Tokyo, about an hour from the competition venue. She was relearning skills she had long ago mastered, and when she was able, she competed in the balance beam competition, taking bronze. The pandemic has been inexpressibly hard in so many ways. One of them is that the bonds of community have been stretched through our continual need to rely on technologically mediated interactions. It may feel like the teams we were once a part of have vanished into the ether, but when it comes to the college community, we are still here. Sometimes our size is a challenge, but in this regard, it's one of our superpowers. We are big, we are strong, we are resilient, and we are deeply human in our compassion for each other. Our creativity and our flexibility make us who we are. And like Simone Biles, we are robot-proof. Trust the broad ecology of our college, and let's reach for the future with optimism together. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen today. Thank you especially to the speakers, to Provost Buckwalter, and to all the people who have been doing such exceptional work to keep developing the school's project. Thanks to all of you for an amazing year last year and what I hope will be an excellent year ahead. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you in person and virtually whenever we have an opportunity. Take care, everybody.